everybody. My name is Evan Radisik. I am the Executive Director of the Cloud Software Association. Thanks a lot for joining me for another masterclass. Today, we have Jared Fuller. He's the Senior Director of Global Partnerships at Drift. He's going to walk us through kind of how he approaches these quote unquote kind of strategic alliances, specifically around how to approach those with some of the kind of industry giants like a Microsoft or an Adobe, which he's done numerous times. In fact, for the last two startups he's worked for, he's kind of built these incredible strategic partnerships with what would have seen back then as an unfathomable thing. So he's kind of going to walk us through what his magic formula in approaching these giant kind of partnerships is. If you have any questions, just jump in. We try to make these as interactive and casual as possible. So it is kind of awkward in Zoom, so everybody knows that. So given that, it's just do it. But yeah, and I won't take up much time. Jared, I'll hand it off to you and go for it.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody. I will do the obligatory, make sure that everyone can see my screen. So let me put this up here.
You should be good there now.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and see, I do that who here clicks share instead of present every single time on Google Slides? Is it just me? I don't think it's just me. All right, I'll be pay attention to the chat as well. So everyone can see the screen?
Good.
Yes.
You rock. All right. I see some familiar faces on here. What's up, Alan?
Hey, Jared.
And then pictures, and I see who else we got? Chat. Cool. Matt. Yeah, a handful of folks I know. So, all right. I'm going to be talking to you today about how to win strategic alliance with market leaders as a startup. This seems just intuitive, but the reality is not all partners are equal. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I have a quick question for the crew here. What is the purpose of a partner leader? Come on, give me some answers. Chat, open up, whatever it is. What do you think the purpose of a partner leader is? To lead, come on. Bridge the gap.
To find out how to get as much value as possible from the ecosystem that you work with.
See some drive revenue. Alan, I think that was Alan. Sounded like Alan.
Yeah, it was.
Mutual benefits to partners in their organization. And I'm just saying, all of you are wrong.
A little bit more about your conversation since I'm not there with you. So we'll get the second round started.
We have, hold on, someone's got something happening.
I just to note for a few announcements on the
video.
Yeah, hold on, let me see who it is.
Should be good now.
We're good. Somebody
All
on
right.
their phone.
No, it's to bitch and moan. Channel conflict, like we don't treat our partners right? Like the reality is that in many organizations that are not partner led, this is the viewpoint, is that, gosh, partnerships are always the hard part of our organization. And it's not a core part of everyone's go-to-market. I mean, the reality is that most of the time, that's how we're viewed. So I think we can change that. And strategic alliances is the framework by which you can have an entirely different kind of go-to-market strategy. So a bit about me before. So like, what can I do to kind of talk about this? So I've gone from 0 to #1 alliance with the market leader in our category 3 times in a row. So at PandaDoc, we went from 0, so no relationship with HubSpot, to the HubSpot's first ever exclusive alliance at a 30-person startup. We went from 0 to HubSpot CRM's #1 tech partner globally, and we're integrated into every single HubSpot CRM's customers onboarding email. So over 25,000 people a month were driven to install PandaDoc inside of HubSpot CRM. And that led to HubSpot's first ever venture investment, right? So it fundamentally transformed the state of the union for PandaDoc. It was a company defining moment. And then at Drift, Marketo was the leader in marketing automation. We went from 0 to Marketo's first ever exclusive alliance as a 100-person startup. We became their #1 tech partner globally. took over the main stage keynote at Marketo Summit and drove over 1,000 mid-market and enterprise paying customers. And then we translated that same thing into Adobe. So from 0 to Adobe Partner of the Year. I think I have, I don't know if folks can still see me on camera, but I have the silly piece of glass right here, the Adobe Partner of the Year, which is great because I'm a geek for Photoshop. And you know, little kid Jared would have been proud of that, having played with Photoshop for 15 years. And it was Adobe's first exclusive alliance as well. So how did I do it? It's kind of 5 parts that I'm going to talk through today that I definitely want to get some input. So some of it's going to be conversation driven. Some of it's going to be a little bit more intense slide driven. Some points are foundational, let's say a priori, things that you need to build from and understand. And then some are tactical that you can actually drive through and run an exercise around. So let's hop in. First thing we're going to talk about is being market led. This is a saying that Sunir has drilled into my brain and I really love, but it's that the market always wins. And this is a phrase that I've been saying to a lot of different folks. Great product never beats great go-to-market. Before I read the second half of that sentence or that statement, who's heard that phrase before? Maybe in strategy sessions with your product team or marketing. Great product never beats great go-to-market. Never. It's kind of true. And I'll give you some examples of that. So if you think about, you know, Slack disrupting, for example, like HipChat or Skype or whatever, you're like, no, it's so clear that great product, right, can definitely win over, you know, the Atlassian or let's say the Skype, you know, giant, you know, businesses that they were. The reality is that Slack had more than just a great product, right? Slack kind of pioneered the freemium product-led growth kind of strategy, right? Their go-to-market was fundamentally better than HipChat. Yes, of course, it's a great product, but the reality is this HipChat is pretty similar to Slack. I mean, I was using it back in 2013. Didn't really have a real reason to switch to Slack. But let's think about the difference between Slack and Microsoft Teams. Anyone aware of how many weekly active users Slack has roughly? It's about 20 million weekly. What's that?
Yeah, about 1/10 as much as Teams has.
Yeah, so anywhere estimates are between 15, 20 million weekly active users, and Microsoft Teams has around 125 million. Anyone think that Microsoft Teams, in terms of their chat product, is a better product than Slack? I sure as heck don't think so. But what happened? Well, great go-to-market never beats great ecosystem. What happened is that Microsoft made it a mandate to drive their entire office productivity suite through their field, their giant partner programs, and they leapfrogged because they already had the paper, right? And the procurement, the security, the legal done, because Microsoft's in every major enterprise, and they drove that, their channel partners, their technology partners, to a place where Slack never even saw Microsoft coming. Right. I mean, Slack was literally taking out full page ads trying to talk crap. I mean, I've never seen a cool startup like this. Did anyone see that? The full page ads that Slack was taking out in you know, major publications like Washington Post, basically calling Microsoft Teams a copycat. The reality is it didn't matter, right? Teams is way ahead, and that's why Slack and Salesforce had to combine. And then this is where I'm going to talk some crap to Evan. So Evan, what's up? The next example.
I saw that second bullet point there. that's
so
my
Evan was the VP of Partnerships at Proposify. And the reason I'm going to bring up this example is twofold. Proposify and PandaDoc both were founded in 2013. Proposify's product is, I would say, arguably better than PandaDoc's in terms of features, functionality, beauty, etc. But at PandaDoc, how did we win? Well, I think everything changed whenever I started to realize that you can't just go to market, you have to market and then into you. And we made a big bet at PandaDoc. We said, if we want to disrupt the document or proposal management space, We have to go where those users already live instead of trying to push ourselves directly into the customer. So what we did is we signed that exclusive alliance with HubSpot and got distribution into HubSpot's CRM's customer base. We made a big bet there that they were going to become #1 in CRM, and the entire company got behind it. And that, from beginning to end, in less than 1 year, we went from 0 exposure with HubSpot to being in front of 25,000 new people every single month, right? Like, that's not go to market. That's a BD deal. That's a strategic alliance. And then, for example, you could put 50 companies in front of live chat. Maybe I think I could take a quick little swing at Sunir. I'm just kind of messing, but Sunir had, was definitely in the live chat space, Olark, et cetera. And what were we able to do with Drift? Well, instead of going to market and just going to market, we said, where do we need to win? Where do we need to play? Well, most chat for marketing and sales is kind of like a form, right? We're collecting leads. We're trying to convert people to sales. So where can we intercept those users that are already there to drive market dominance in a way that we otherwise couldn't? And that was marketing automation. So we went from, in less than 1 year, from, I'd say, about 50 joint customers with Marketo to 1,000 joint customers with Marketo. We got over 500 direct referrals. When I say direct referrals, I mean CSM or AE introduction to the account, to the appropriate account executive at Drift. Live chat, Olark, Snap Engage, even Intercom, they couldn't compete with that because we were already ahead of any go-to-market ad, email, phone call they would have made into those accounts. We were being directly walked in. And that's what I mean by great go-to-market never beats great ecosystem. We're able to take these and transform and fundamentally change the trajectory of the company by going to the market where the people already reside and building the trust from that framework. So that a strategic alliance, to me, you have to have and understand what it means to be market-led and go where the people already are, where their most trusted relationships are, and work backwards to you, not from you to the end customer. Any comments, feedback, pushback, questions? I mean, this was definitely, I was treading into some deep waters here, throwing shade at both Evan and Sunir on this one.
I'm not going to comment on which company is more profitable.
What's that?
I shouldn't comment about which company is more profitable. You drifted a lot.
Oh, Sunir, we can definitely get into one of those philosophical debates for sure. For sure. No,
Jared, how much of this would you say is, you're talking about kind of placing bets, right, and kind of doubling down. And I've been through that a couple of times where, the senior management team meets and it's like, okay, where are our customers? Who do we want to really strategically align ourselves with? And everybody gets on board. And sometimes you pick, something that's not easily achievable. Like if you say a HubSpot now, that's different than saying HubSpot 6-7 years ago, right? So, there's a cost to pursuing those types of partnerships and betting on those relationships. Like my question really is like, how much of this would you say is impacted how well funded your startup is to be able to pursue and have the luxury of pursuing these, I don't want to say risky, but bettable.
They're very risky. I wouldn't take any objection to that statement at all. They're very risky. Making the wrong choice is, there's a good management framework that talks about the difference between an individual contributor, a manager, a director, a VP, and C-suite. And that a C-suite executive, the definition of why these roles and titles are more important is directly correlated to the negative impact they could have on the business. So like a VP could have irreparable damage for 6 months, for example, and then a C-suite executive could have irreparable damage forever, right? They could end the company. These strategic alliances are on that level, right? They not only offer the opportunity to fundamentally change your trajectory, but also potentially send you down the wrong path, waste all of your energy and resources, and you could end up in a very bad spot from a corp dev, M&A, kind of strategy. They can be company ending. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next part. is how do you go through this? How is there a framework or a way to really make that right choice? So I'll answer that in the third section. The other thing that I think is really important, just as an example, is like kind of like making these choices and being market led. Your strategic alliance should drive your entire partnership strategy. So here's what I mean by that. You know, our customers, they live in market. Drift is trying to build direct relationships with the customer. Obviously, we have Adobe, but there's also their service community and their ecosystem. If you're just going out and building, for example, a channel strategy, absent an existing ecosystem where you have a strong technical play, you're missing the point, right? You can't, so for Drift, for example, we focus on marketing agencies that have some practice area around Adobe Analytics, Marketo, AEP, AEM, right? That's our 150 channel partners are all within the Adobe ecosystem. So we won the Adobe Alliance. We won Marketo, then we won the Adobe Alliance, and we're able to have trust and skip to the front of the line of all of their top service partners, all the way to Accenture and Deloitte even, where we're doing conversational AI deals that we would not otherwise have if Adobe did not have Drift as their exclusive provider for conversational marketing and AI chat. So that's what I mean about being market led and kind of changing the way that you approach this. Before I build any other partner function inside of the organization, I say I have to become number one with my most important market leader in my category, because that's going to dictate the downstream of my, let's say, ISV or tech programs, and then also my channel or solutions partner programs. And that's what we did at PandaDoc, and that's what I've also done at Drift. So I say being market led, that's how you choose, you know, where you start, and it's the rest of your downstream of your you know, partner strategy. So understanding strategic alliances, this is a kind of a quick point, but transitioning into kind of how we start to understand this. To me, what is the root word of strategic alliances? It's strategy. And strategy equals choice, period. If there's one thing that you can take away from this masterclass, is that you should be thinking about this concept every single day. Strategy equals choice, period. The problem is that it is by far the most misunderstood word in all of startups. Because at a startup, everything is strategic. Everyone thinks their priorities are most important. You know, so how do you influence the choices that your company makes? You know, you try to drive some concept of strategy. And if you get caught up in the minutia of all the various ways that people can, you know, try to manipulate or I'd say monopolize the executive teams or the go-to-market team's time, there's no way you'll ever be able to create that alignment. So going from kind of being market-led, understanding that strategic alliances means you're going to have to make a choice. Evan, you made the point that this could be risky. That's the point. How do you make the right choice? Because it's not about just what you say yes to, it's also about what you say no to. And that's where I want to talk a little bit about, and I'll give you some kind of behind the scenes about how I went through this, for example, at Drift, which is the playing to win framework. Has anyone on the call ever heard of playing to win as a framework? It's a great book. There's a Harvard course on it. And it's basically how to make strategic choices as an executive. Love to hear if anyone's heard of it. I'd love to geek out with you for a moment, but if not, I'm going to walk you through it. Hearing no one? Who wants to take a Harvard course on how to make strategic business decisions? I was actually very fortunate. You can take it online too. So I highly recommend it. So the playing to win framework starts with defining kind of your current strategy. The author defines, just, that's where I obviously stole it from, strategy as a choice. That's all that it is. So what you want to do is define your current strategy and then juxtapose that against a future one. So we're going to go through this 5-part framework. The first one is what is our winning aspiration? So again, this is not the good. This is, hey, what is our current state of the union? So I built this from the perspective of, leading a partner program. So what is our current aspiration, or what is our winning aspiration? To build a partner program, identify our ideal customer profile, focus on the right partner, not just all partners. And the reality is like the aspirations were not bigger than that whenever I started at Drift. The second question is, where will we play? Well, then it was agencies and some BPOs, so business process outsourcers for chat. The channel was inbound. We just had inbound interest. What was the product? The product was an MVP. We select, partners who will sell and assist the best we can with, a single resource. And then the geography was global. 9 of our 24 partners were international. And then how will we win in chosen markets? Well, the thesis would be by focusing on the right partners, and then learning before we invest. And then what capabilities must we have? Partner onboarding, partner management, partner communication, and what management systems do we need? CRM, partner application process, and some partner certification process. So none of this on the right, in the beginning state was all that good. It was just kind of the current state of the union. But these 5 questions are how you go from, well, how do we make the right strategic choice, to kind of changing the trajectory and going, no, we're going to actually know the answers to all 5 of these questions. So these 5 questions, if you have bad answers to, you do not have a strategic, let's say business or go to market objective. You're instead just busy, right? Everything's important. So the next step in the process, you kind of go through, defining your current strategy, is to frame these strategic choices and generate possibilities. So you basically start with a strategic problem. So partner programs such as, HubSpots, Microsoft's, Google's, could lock in a large swath of customers for our product space, blocking us from a large segment of the market. So the choices that we kind of have here is avoid the reseller market, play the entire reseller market, or play a niche in the reseller market. These are all 3 valid kind of questions and choices, right? As a business, like some executives might be like, why are we working with, solutions, agencies, or reseller partners? They might not have even bought in. Do you see the difference of like approaching your entire So I did this entire exercise, by the way, with the C-suite at Drift and our entire senior leadership team in the first 2 months that I was at Drift. My CFO, he really liked this choice. He's like, oh, I don't believe in partners. I don't think this is going to work. So that is a choice. But then you need to generate some possibilities as well. So we could focus, on distribution and down market and go with the agency partners. We could narrow our focus and kind of go mid-market. So Marketo, Eloqua, larger agencies, BPOs. We could broaden our approach, maintain our current path with just the loudest of partners. And then there was some discussions around referral programs. So you frame these strategic choices from a position of a problem. Like, what is the most strategic problem to your business? What choices can we make that will potentially fix that problem? And then what are the possibilities in terms of those outcomes? So if you kind of like look at these things and go down into each of these strategic possibilities. So I kind of called each one, mid-market takeover, lightning speed. So kind of SMB, blow it up, play the market, SMB to, all the way, or play a new game, right? Which is, have something that is more of a referral program driven. That's for those of you who seen Drift in the B2B space, obviously our brand was much bigger than our company. A couple hundred employees. We were driving over 1 million hits a month to our website. It's like, do we even need partner? Can we just use our brand and our kind of customer love to drive referrals? So those were all 4 strategic possibilities that I could, we all had candid conversations as a senior leadership team, as an executive leadership team around. And you can see, I won't go, this has a little bit too much detail, so I just kind of like blanked it out. Well, I can talk about this one a little bit. So strategic possibility number 1, And I obviously framed it that way because that's the one that we chose. So it's like, we wanted to do a up market, abandon the SMB, go into the mid-market and into the enterprise. To own the mid-market, which was kind of being abandoned by Marketo and avoided by HubSpot, and become the category leader for medium-sized businesses. So where will we play? Marketo partners, BPOs, large agencies. Our channels would be target-based. We'd focus our partner program on being mid-market. We'd be global. And then what capabilities must we have? Strong data and targeting, ABM, integrations with the platforms that they use to sell products. And then kind of like basic individual things, like enablement, et cetera. So what you do based on kind of like those 5 questions is you reverse engineer that strategy. So you have your industry, your customer value, your relative position, and your competitors. And each step, you have to be able to say this statement at the bottom. It would have to be true that, agency consultant, right, X, or, these capabilities would be true. Everything in here, this is where you kind of brain dump, and then you strike everything else out that is a nice to have. Questions about the playing to win framework. So once you're there and you struck it out, you'd say, okay, here's our segments. Here's our, customer value, our personas for, kind of like partners, the relative position, the competitors, and then that should output the most strategic, let's say tech or industry leader in your space and the ecosystem by which you want to play. So this is the very tactical part of the presentation, but this is the good stuff. Questions, arguments, disagreements.
Yeah, Jared, I think it's cool because it's comprehensive, but I wonder how it helps you think out of the box, because there's a conventionality to these questions are all straightforward and conventional. So how does it help you think out of the box to like imagine a partnership with someone who might not be obvious, that would help you to really create a exponential impact on your go-to-market, which I think at the end of the day is what partnering with strategic alliances, especially when you're little, are all about.
Absolutely. So that's a very good point, because this exercise, if you want to really follow the book, it is like a 2-month exercise. I'm trying to boil it down to like just the very big or very small points, is that you should actually have multiple strategic problems, Alan. Right. So like on this one, it was like, hey, these partner programs that already exist across HubSpot, they own the agency space, Microsoft obviously owning the MSP kind of like VAR space, and Google from an ad perspective. Like those 3 ecosystems, if they were to launch their own product in our space, could be death to Drift, right? Now, maybe is that going to help me think out of the box? No, but when I did this at PandaDoc, this strategic problem was was framed a little bit as follows: was that the SMB CRM space. So how many SMB CRMs are there now? I mean, there's hundreds. Pipedrive, Capsule, Insightly, like you could just go ammo on and on and on and on, right? There are hundreds of SMB CRMs, Close.io. And what we saw as a strategic problem is that we went out and we built 26 integrations with SMB CRMs. And the strategic problem at PandaDoc was we believed that there was going to be a consolidation of SMB CRM and that a new platform was going to emerge. Whenever HubSpot launched CRM, I mean, it was nothing. It was free. And we made that bet to go, we believe that a strategic problem for us is that there's going to be a mass consolidation in the SMB CRM space, and we're going to have to acknowledge that. So you should have many strategic problems, right? That I think can help you think more outside the box in terms of things that would prevent you from, getting to, of course, your winning aspiration. So that's where I'd say the more thoughtful, creative process comes in, is understanding like what are the problems in the market. That's why that first point is being market led. What's actually happening in the market? I'd love to hear some stories from people that are here, because I feel like I'm the crazy person. I'm also I've been referred to as I'll leave some of the descriptive phrases out. But insistent, annoying, persistent. I think my favorite one though is increasingly unsufferable, because in every single senior leadership or executive meeting that I'm in, I'm asking questions about the market. And what does everyone else typically see in a senior leadership meeting? I hear discussions and conversations about us going to market. What is our marketing team doing to try and get more ads? What does our email sequences look like? What is our SDRs doing? It's all about our problems, but it's not about what's actually happening in the market. What are the strategic problems in market that we need to be coalescing all the way around? To me, that's where the creativity comes in. How creative are we really going to be on A/B testing ad spend? How creative are we really going to be on SDR sequences? There's no creativity in that in terms of strategic imperatives for the business. So what I would say is, if you're able to lead from the market and be increasingly insufferable to say, hey team, we have to think about the strategic problems of the market and focus our most high level, kind of intellectual capacity there as a leadership team. To me, that's where the creativity comes out, versus getting caught in the minutia of running, normal go-to-market or product operations.
Yeah, that was a good answer. Thanks.
All right. So obviously that was the one that we chose with Drift, was the kind of like mid-market takeover, and worked very well for us with Marketo and Drift. All right, so the next component is finding the black swan. So after you've gone through kind of like a playing to win framework or exercise, or something where where you need to win with the category leader in your space, it's the ecosystem where you want to play. They have the most Mongol hordes of customers that you want. You need to figure out what the heck is in it for them. And 9 times out of 10, the black swan is all about what's in it for the partner. Like, what is in it for that person? Like, why would HubSpot care about partnering with PandaDoc? Why would Marketo care about partnering with Drift? Why would they care so much so that they would sign an exclusive alliance that they have never signed before? HubSpot had never signed an exclusive alliance. Marketo had never signed an exclusive alliance. Adobe had never signed an exclusive alliance. These were all first of their kind BD deals. Well, that's because we found the black swan. Who on the call has read this book? So Ryan? Yep. Kabir? If you have not read this book, you absolutely have to read this book. And it's also fun. So Chris Voss is a FBI hostage negotiator. I would consider table stakes for BD deals. And what he talks about is the black swan moment of what is the thing that must be true, or what is the thing that is true but not apparent to all parties, right? It exists sort of in market. There is some value there, but not all parties are aware of it. It's a great book. There's a ton of things, lots of fun. And it's this small or large piece of information that has a high impact on the implementation of a negotiated agreement. And it's the thing that neither party is aware of when we start the conversation, but if we're unable to uncover it, it brings the other party to our side of the table. So with Marketo, which I'll kind of looking out, like, why were we looking to partner with Marketo? We went through that strategic kind of framework, right? They had the largest immediate ideal customer fits. We were all bought in as an executive team that we were going to win Marketo at all costs. I think that's the other thing to point out. Is there another anecdote that someone can share with me where you had the entire executive team where you were like, we are going to win this partnership at all costs? I mean, this went to the board at Sequoia. Pat Grady reviewed the term sheet of Drift and Marketo before we signed off. I mean, this was C-suite, this was board level. Does anyone have any of those examples where you're like, we are going to win this alliance at all costs? No one? Well, I'm hoping that's because that's why you're here too. Just to give away some of the secrets. Is that when we had that, we realized, Marketo has the largest number of ideal fit customers. We're going to win this at all costs. And for us, what really was the fastest path to revenue. Trying to be competitive. In late 2017, we created an email product. And what does Marketo do? Marketo, I mean, they're basically a gigantic email cannon. That's pretty much it. Sorry for any Marketo ecosystem folks out there. That's kind of what they were, just a giant email cannon. And we created a competing product. And that a lot of our partner discussion was around that. Is Drift coming for us? Are we going to try and be competitive? But we had to find the black swan. And what was that? Well, is that on average, that Drift drives 2x the number of contacts into the Marketo database. So if you install Drift on your site, you set it up right, we were actually doubling the amount of contacts inside of a Marketo database. And we had a minimally viable integration that was proving that. So we had some customers that were kicking butt with Drift. We got a hack together integration to throw it inside Marketo. And then lo and behold, we were able to create upsell opportunities for their CSMs without us even doing anything. Why? Because Marketo prices based on the number of contacts in their database. So we had a very unique opportunity, the black swan moment, if you will, where we chose, right, Marketo because they had the largest number of ideal fit customers for us. And then we realized, to find that black swan, that we were their most valuable integration partner, and we didn't even have a partnership yet. There's not a single other integration to Marketo. In the executive conversations, when I was negotiating this with Steve Lucas, CEO of Marketo, Sarah Kennedy, CMO, TK Cotter, SVP of BizDev over there wasn't a single other partner that was able to drive that amount of contact volume into Marketo. So that's what I mean by about finding the black swan, choosing the right partner, and then the one reason why you're more important to them than anything else. And before I go on to the next thing, I can share how we did the exact same thing. I actually hadn't read, obviously Chris Voss had not written, Never Split the Difference whenever I built the PandaDoc and HubSpot alliance, but it was the same logic. I think it's very interesting, what's in it for me. If you can find that and prove that you are more important than every other, partner for some core key metric to the business, that's how you're going to win. So at PandaDoc and HubSpot, what we were able to find out is that of all the activation metrics in the entirety of HubSpot CRM, right? So let's think about CRM for a second. What would be the most important activation metric for like lifetime value or churn? So someone signs up for a new CRM. What do you think that event would be? Adding a new contact, a new account, sending an email. Anyone have any idea of what the most important activation metric was for HubSpot CRM? What they saw had more impact on churn than any other metric? Take a guess. What do you think that number one metric would be for CRM? Not engagement, not a number of integrations. This is specific to CRM. So it is an activation metric, Evan, but it's a specific one. It's moving a deal to closed won, right? If HubSpot, if they could get their users to move a deal to closed won, that's where the dopamine hits, right? Like, who loves CRM? Not really anyone. But whenever you get the closed won deal, that's the entire point. That's the entire point of CRM. And if HubSpot was able to get someone to move a deal to closed won, they were 7,000 times more likely to buy a paid product. 7,000. Did HubSpot even know that this was their most important metric when we started working with them? No, but we helped them find it out. And guess what? PandaDoc, e-signature, right? Proposal, closing, quoting documents, we set right at the intersection of moving a deal to closed won. So how did we know and measure it? So this was with two product folks on the HubSpot CRM side, Matt Schnitt who was their senior manager of their CRM from a product side. And then Christopher Todd, who's now the chief product officer at HubSpot. Back then he was, I think, a director of product. We went through that entire process with them. So they had some basic activation and engagement metrics. And we went through and said like, hey, looking at the customer journey, can you break this out into some lifecycle events and which ones are most important? And from kind of sign up all the way to, you know, their first expansion, right? The first dollars in from a HubSpot CRM customer. So I was driving HubSpot to show me what was their most important activation metric. They didn't actually know in HubSpot CRM specifically, because that was a new product. There was a lot of growth things that Brian Balfour and some very smart people did at HubSpot, but from an activation, churn, net retention perspective, they didn't know. And that's where they found out during that process that you were 7,000 times more likely to not churn and expand if you close won a deal. So I didn't have that number, but I did force HubSpot to come up with it. And at that point, that's when we realized that PandaDoc was their most important integration, right? Because they didn't have the technology to do so, to actually help someone close a deal. All right, so I'm gonna go through this. And then this is just kind of zooming out. Like if you do this right, finding that black swan, right? So in 2018, we launched the Marketo integration. We got the first exclusive alliance agreement with Marketo. 2019, less than 1 year later, we were their fastest and top growing integration partner. And I think this one is probably one of my favorite things, is that we launched conversational ABM. So we also, in that management meeting of the Playing to Win framework, agreed that we needed to have an ABM component to the market. And this was so important because it actually allowed us to take over the entire keynote in front of 20,000 people. So Steve Lucas, the CEO of Marketo, his keynote was introducing my CEO, David Cancel, on the main stage to introduce the new integration that we'd launched together. Like, that's crazy. We went from a meeting with my executive team in 2018 to taking over their annual event, main stage, 20,000 people, the keynote. We were the only company that was not Marketo on the main stage. And now we're breaking into vertical focus in teams, and Adobe's actually producing a case study about us. So kind of in 4 years, you can see how that changes the entire trajectory of the company. And if you saw the news with Vista making a strategic investment with Drift, that's also related to the Marketo partnership as well, right? Just like HubSpot invested in PandaDoc Series B, Marketo was owned by Vista before the sell to Adobe, and that's a big reason why they chose us to partner, because of our partnership with Marketo. So I know we got a few minutes left, so I'll make this one quick, but this is an easy point. This is one of those foundational points, like how to negotiate and win these big BD deals. You are the entrepreneur. There's a book that I've mentioned on the podcast. I hate bringing it up every time because I don't think it's that good, but there are some gem takeaways. It's called The Sumo Advantage, and it's written by the founder of TrueCar. And TrueCar's entire go-to-market strategy was basically BD driven. And it's written from the perspective of an entrepreneur and how to win these big BD deals. It's even in the title, the sumo, right? Advantage. I often refer to this play of like winning the sumo of your space. Is that the way that he frames the entirety of this? He said there's two types of BD people. There's BD people that leverage their existing network and contacts, and there's BD people that create net new partnerships. And he said the latter kind, those are the entrepreneurs, where they lead with their own terms. They're creating the deal. It's a very entrepreneurial endeavor. And I think that's why a lot of my favorite BD folks are people that are either ex-entrepreneurs or getting into entrepreneurship. Is you have to lead. HubSpot, here's my main takeaway for point 5. HubSpot did not have a partner program for PandaDoc. HubSpot CRM did not even have an API when we made that call. So there was no program for me to fall into. There was no thing for me to sign. I had to create the terms we had to get the alignment from the executive team, and we had to craft our own term sheet where we presented it to HubSpot and got them to sign off before ever taking anything to legal. And then the same thing at Marketo. Marketo had never done an exclusive alliance, but that's what I pitched them. I said, you will not be allowed to build, buy, or partner with anyone else. And in less than 1 year, we will be your #1 partner globally. When I texted that to TK Cotter on why he needed to take a call with me, he said, "You're the most hilarious person I've ever texted with." But because we were driving, right, an entrepreneurial kind of sales process, we were pitching the vision to them. We were able to do something that wasn't just falling into their launch point and their Connect program, right? So Adobe or Marketo launch point was nothing. You had to pay a minimum commit, do a few things. And instead we got complete exclusivity and eliminated a giant market threat. Marketo could not build, buy, or partner with anyone else. And they were in active M&A conversations with companies like Drift. So I'm gonna leave you with that one. Skim through a few quick slides. So that way there's a few minutes left for Q&A, but be the entrepreneur, as a recap. Be market-led, force your management teams to think about what's happening in the market. Understand that strategic alliances is merely just strategy, which is choice. There are some great frameworks for playing to win and how to walk through those possibilities to give you that focus and buy-in with the management team. If you want to win those big BD deals, you have to be able to find that black swan moment on why you're more important to something to that company than any other company in the market. And then lastly, you're an entrepreneur in this regard. There is no playbook, right? There is no, here's exactly how you do this. I'm just sharing my story and how I've done it 3 times. And I did it because I felt like, I was an entrepreneur. I got to lead something, end to end. So thank you very much. You can check out more stuff at partneruppodcast.com. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, message me anytime there, or of course, obviously in the CSA Slack group. So I'm going to stop yelling at y'all now and see what questions, feedback, et cetera, people have.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jared. That was great. Yeah, like you said, Jared is in Slack. So I'd love to take this conversation into Slack and off this call. I think what we've been able to go through in 1 hour, I think is great. But I think there's a lot of things to unpack there, and I'm sure Jared would be more than happy to answer some questions throughout the week if you guys want to post some stuff in Slack. But we got a couple minutes still left here, so if there's any questions, shoot them over.
I got a quick one if you guys can hear me.
Yeah. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, Jared. Dylan Bittrick from Link Squares. Thanks for taking the time today. It was a great session. So it looks like the exclusive deals that you did were really your biggest successes. So I'm just curious, what were like the give to gets around those exclusive partnerships? And then how did that affect the other partners in your partner ecosystem? So what did you have to give up to really sign those exclusive deals?
I'll answer your last question first. I just launched on the App Exchange with Salesforce last week, and this is my 4th year at Drift. So what did I give up? I mean, I gave up an entire ecosystem. With Drift, we did nothing with Salesforce for 4 years. Nothing. We had an integration, of course, because it's table stakes, but like no partnership activity whatsoever. What did we give up? We gave up Salesforce. 90% of the rest of the market was going after Salesforce in that ecosystem. We said no. So we gave up the biggest ecosystem to go after one we could win, right? They had better marketing automation in Marketo, but Salesforce was still bigger. Then to answer your first question, what is the give to get? There's a couple things, but most of it has to do with revenue and commits, right? Like in these strategic deals, you are putting money into this, potential partnership, and they need to be able to see that they can make, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, $50 million over X period of time. So typically these strategic alliances come with a minimum commit, and it's a joint commit if you can do it right, to say that, hey, we'll drive $5 million in joint business. And then company X will, get 20-25% of that. So that's the biggest one. And then you can typically get that money back in MDF if you're smart about it. So let's say I had $1 million minimum commit to my partner. It's $5 million to me that we're going to drive in a year. And then I could get them to put up $500,000 in market development funds.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Anybody else? We've got time for one more if anybody wants to jump in.
I was going to say when you're asking, but I've ever done a strategic deal before. I did, but I ended it up when I was at FreshBooks. But somehow I ended up with a trade association, a Slack community, and a conference every year as a result. So be careful. Be careful, folks.
I love Sunir. It's
Now
still one of
you're
my favorite
helping.
podcasts with the one I did with you, because like the
Yeah.
market-led concept is like how I've kind of thought, but you made it so much more clear to me.
Yeah.
So I've
If you ever
loved
wondered
working
why
with
the
you.
conference used to be at the PayPal or eBay town hall, it's because we were good friends.
All right,
Amazing.
everybody.
All right, well,
feel free to
thanks
ping
a
me on
lot.
Slack.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And like I said, let's take it off this call and in Slack. If you have any questions, post them up, and hopefully join us for the next one. So hey, thanks Jared for putting this together. This was great. And thanks everybody for joining.
All right, thanks y'all.